thank everybody for following the channel. Roots Need Trees was birthed during one of the most difficult seasons of my life. I found myself in a place where I didn't really have much to turn to. I was in a shelter and I cried out to Yah, and I wanted so badly for him to hear my voice and for him to know that I would never ever let anything in life come in between me and the creativity he placed inside of me again. I wanted him to know that though I had chosen disobedience in my life, that I was willing to do whatever it took to consecrate myself and to follow after his kingdom. What happened subsequently was really, really hard, but it was worth it. He prompted my ruach to write the book, How to Be a Believer in a New Age World, where I share my testimony. I share how he walked me away from New Age practices and idolatry and into serving him deeper. I do believe that when you get called out and you start to pursue truth, when you get baptized under the names Yahusha and Yahuwah, be prepared for a cleansing unlike any other. It's like all the underlying roots that are there that we don't maybe necessarily pay attention to very much, they come up, they surface. And it can be a excruciating process, but it's so very necessary. And I found myself hanging between the choice of living for other people's approval, living for the modernized ideas of how miracles happen and who's really leading this whole thing, divorcing myself from pantheism, the idea that the universe is God. I found myself dealing with my ideals of romance, of love, and this insatiable desire to be with a husband, to have somebody love me and care for me and to treat me right. And then getting into a relationship and placing that relationship above Elohim, above everything. I would just stop being who I was entirely in order to pursue the relationship. But y'all definitely delicately dealt with me on that. And for 7 years, he purged my heart. And I'm not saying that he's done with me. He's not. I'm still a work in progress, as we all are. But as I look back on my life, I can truly say that he has done a great work. And I spare no expense in my book. I talk about things that are very difficult to talk about. I talk about all the taboo stuff that you don't talk about at the dinner table, like abortion, like the esteem of one's skin color, and what does that mean in his kingdom, like the rat race and us serving mammon over his kingdom, and how do we reconcile that. I really poured my heart out into this book, How to Be a Believer in a New Age World. And it's available on Spotify, it's available on Amazon, and it's available on at Barnes & Noble online. But what I will say is that in the process of doing that, he really opened my eyes to all that is inside of me. And I'm not going to be afraid anymore and hide behind my animations. I believe that this was a beautiful, beautiful platform, and maybe he'll inspire me to continue doing animations in the future. But right now, he has called me to chronicle my YouTube channel under my name, which is Kristen Onday Brown. And I'll try to leave a link down below, either in a comment or in the description of this video. And it literally has been my journal, my spiritual journal. In 2018, I started making videos on YouTube. Thing after thing happened. I was an engineer. I hated my job, but I got the job in order to please what I thought would impress my father. And in working that job, I learned that there's two kinds of hard. There's the disobedient hard, and then there's the hard that makes you grow. The disobedient hard will make you grow, but it's going to make you grow to the place where wisdom would have carried you. When you follow wisdom, hokmah, it causes you to grow, and it also causes you to grow into purpose. So I left my career in engineering, and I moved to China to teach English because the Father moved me to do so. When I was in China, I saw believers persecuted in so many different ways. Imagine having to find congregations underground because you could get placed into prison for praising. If your pastor doesn't register with the Chinese Communist Party, he can go to prison. I saw that, and I talk about this in my book, How to Be a Believer in a New Age World. There's a pastor there by the name of Pastor Wang Yi. He was imprisoned because he refused to submit his sermons to the Chinese Communist Party in China. They torture pastors there. They drive nails through their nails. They try to get them to renounce and denounce Yahusha. Of course, they're Chinese, so they're learning their faith through Americans or through the West. And so because the predominant way of pronouncing the Son is Jesus, Americans are literally spreading the truncated version of the Ivri faith, right? And so he's refusing to replace the 10 Commandments with President Xi's rhetoric. He's refusing to cut out different parts of the Bible in order to make it so that the Chinese Communist Party wins. As a result, he's in prison. He's been in prison since 2019. I had hoped to go there to find out where he was, to try to liberate him, but it was nearly impossible for me to do. COVID hit. I was visited by the police. I got afraid. The Ruach HaKodesh told me to go into hospitals and to lay hands and to pray with people who had COVID, and I was just too afraid to do so. I returned to the United States. I was truly, truly depressed by what occurred and what I saw and how I saw believers persecuted in China. And then I was even more troubled with the fact that the West it's playing a huge role in how the rest of the world sees the faith. So fast forward to now. I've started making videos again on that channel. I had stopped for many, many years because I was grieving my father. I didn't know how to articulate my grief. I got baptized, and then all of these things spiritually started to manifest in my life, and I was offered the opportunity to choose right. Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. And the Father continued to prune me and refine me. He still is. But the beautiful thing about this is that I believe in His great work. I believe in the way that He holds us in His hand, and that we really truly are His clay. So I want to invite any and all of you, each of you, to join me on that channel. I'm going to continue on there, Yah willing, and as He directs. If He ever inspires me to continue with animations, I'll continue posting here. I want to invite you to listen to the book on Spotify. If you have not, or if you don't have Spotify, it's available as a hardcover on Amazon or as an ebook. I love each of you very, very much. My ahava to each of you. It has been such a journey. And I want to encourage all of us to realize that our skin color really does not our skin color, I believe, is a beautiful garment, but it does not change our purpose. You who is Yisrael, you who are Zion, if we found the way, then it is our responsibility to share it. If we have found our voice, if we have found our faith, if we have found the Elohim, if we have found the way to serve him, then it is our job to be the embodiment of that for the rest of the world. And we could argue about how people look or how they looked all day. But does that care for the fatherless? Does that care for the widow? Does that care for the orphan? Where does that leave us as a society? Where does that relieve us as an example? The responsibility is great. To whom much is given, much is required. And I see us now as brothers and sisters coming up and standing as voices in a world that has truncated the truth, that has said, oh, the truth only looks like this. The truth doesn't really care about the law. The truth doesn't really care about the origins or the books that were deleted or any of that. And that's not true. That's not true. When I first started this channel, I saw people, and I deleted their comments instantly, but they were like questioning me about the way that I portrayed the characters that I did. They were like, Melchizedek, he was Asian, or he was not black. And I thought to myself, even if he were not black, even if he were Asian, how are we respecting that order? How are we living in such a way that shows that we know who he is? Would he really want me to argue with somebody else online about said things? Is the love and the light that emits from me, is it proof positive that I have intimacy with him? But unfortunately, I believe that Satan, Hasatan, has done such an excellent job of distracting us. We get caught up in such trivial things. Does it matter? Oh, absolutely. Yes, one should know their history. Absolutely, it matters. But that's only the beginning. That's only the beginning. If my brothers and sisters are willing to go into prison in China for their faith, but it's only because they've received a misrepresented partial truth of the whole, and I was alive during that time and I didn't open my mouth to say something to inspire them to know the truth. What a waste of breath. We are charged with being the embodiment of what he said. Salvation first comes to the Ivri and then to the rest of the world. Why is that? Because once you know who you are, it doesn't really matter what somebody else says you are. Once you know who you are, you know. There's no undoing that. People can call you whatever they want to call you, but they do so in ignorance and they do so in darkness. And we all know that once somebody comes into the light, it's like you can't unsee it. You just can't. So, Shalom, Ahava. I really love you, and I really hope that you will join me on that channel. Shalom.